master's in clinical mental health counseling. So I basically think that I am a world-renowned doctor of the mind. So today I am going to talk at you, and I'm definitely qualified to say what's best for the general population based on what I just said. Yeah, we're talking attachments and styles of. Do you want to say anything, Bridget, about how you became interested in attachments and their stylings?
I mean, you know, who isn't interested in a good attachment style? I feel like this is definitely something that I know it's been around for a while, but I feel like it wasn't until recent that people really started to dive into like these alternative relationship things. I feel like the love languages really put this type of stuff on the map. You know, people were like, wait, what? You know, it isn't just me and my partner. There's like all these other things like past trauma and how we, you know, all this other stuff. Yeah. But I know me personally, I think it was like via YouTube, I just found a video about like attachment styles. And I'm like, that's one of the things I love about YouTube is sometimes the algorithm just serves you stuff. And you're like, how did you know this is exactly what I needed? And I remember I was just like, I am a 100% an anxiously attached individual.
Yeah.
At least that's, I think when you and I first started talking about it, that was definitely the era, at least, that I was in my attachment style journey. But yeah, so I feel like that was where it kind of started. And from learning about my attachment style and learning about my partner's attachment style and applying those things that I had learned to our relationship, I know I personally feel like it was like life transforming for me.
Yeah, it is. It's so crazy. It's just like one of those things, like you said, love languages, where you realize that the way that you think someone is talking to you is so unique to how the person next to you would perceive the exact same sentence. And it's just like kind of mind blowing because you really do just view the world through your perception. So you're like, well, this is how I see it. So this is how it is, right? And it's like, not necessarily. So basically, attachment styles start with what flavor of damage you got from your parents. So like, generally speaking, the population's split in half. Half of the people are securely attached. So when they had feelings, their parents validated it, they were given healthy outlets, they felt supported, all that. And then the other half of us, that did not happen. And so we have an insecure attachment style, which basically creates a bunch of negative stuff that you do that makes you have the same fight over and over with your partner, where you're literally like, how are we doing this again? I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, that's because you have different attachment styles.
Well, I don't think either. I don't think necessarily that it's like just repetitive like negativity, because I feel like sometimes like people have to work their way through it. Like I don't think becoming securely attached, I mean, obviously that's the goal, but yeah. I feel like that's not necessarily attainable. Like you can work on yourself and you can be conscious of your attachment style. But it's like, I feel like it's like love languages. Like you can't just all of a sudden be like, okay, I'm going to accept like words of, you know, whatever. Encouragement. Even though I'm a physical touch person, like, you know.
Yes, no, that's not going to change. But like basically, so this book was recommended to me by one of our mutual friends, and her therapist recommended it to her. And then I was like, oh my God, this book is so good. And she was like, yeah, I really need to pick that back up. And I was like, I'm almost done with it. Didn't you recommend this to me? But that's okay. It's by Julie Minano, and it's called Secure Love. And she basically says, like, you can get to a place where you're secure in your attachment to your partner. Now, I don't know if you got into a new relationship, if it would just like start back all over again. Yeah. But the goal is to like get the two of you to a place where you're both feeling secure in the partnership.
Well, and I know for me, like one of the tools that I have used this with is for me is like, if I am having an issue or I'm having like an emotional reaction to something, this has become like one of my prime filters. It's like, first of all, I'm like, is this my ego? Because that's just what I think of first. Like, is this just me trying to defend myself against unperceived or unrealistic threats, or I'm like, is it my attachment style? Or is it my partner's attachment style? And then I feel like once I've gone through those three things, it's like, even if I didn't necessarily find a resolution, it's made me think about it enough that like I can like cope with it. You know what I mean? In a secure fashion.
Yeah. So basically there's 4 types of attachment. So there's secure, which is like, you're great, nothing's wrong with you. You made it. Congratulations. We're all super jealous over here on the insecure team. Then there's the most common insecure attachment types out of that other half of the people. And those are anxious insecure attachment and avoidant insecure attachment. And then there's a smaller percentage of disorganized attachment, which is probably one of the more severe and like trauma related attachment styles. Now trauma can be any type, but I mean, if you have disorganized, the chances that you had trauma are pretty high.
I'm unfamiliar with this disorganized, because the ones that I had originally seen were that just wasn't part of it. So I am intrigued by the disorganized.
Do you want to start with disorganized?
I would love to know about the disorganized.
Do you want to know about it? Okay, let's.
All over the place.
Let's know about it. Let's go everywhere. Okay, so there's a section on the disorganized child. So like, what happened to you? And then disorganized adult. So how you are now. Okay. So as a child, someone who's disorganized is generally overwhelmed with their inner experiences and have enormous inner conflict. When triggered, their behaviors lack predictability, and as such, researchers have labeled them disorganized. Just like anxious or avoidant, you didn't really feel safe, but a little bit stronger. So the people that you needed the most may have been a source of danger. They could have been overly punitive all the way to extremely neglectful. It might not have been all the time, but it was enough to have an impact. The inner conflict is an intense biological drive for emotional comfort and safety, but you also have no hope in finding it. So it's called approach fear distress, which is I need to approach, but I'm too afraid. And then there's a deep sense of despair because of that conflict. So your nervous system's activated all the time, which is like fight or flight. And normally you shouldn't be in fight or flight. That's like a rare trigger button when you're in danger. And one of the biggest issues in our society today is that many people are in this state on a weekly or daily basis. So not good. There was significant difficulty managing these childhood emotions, and it fueled intense, exaggerated, unpredictable behaviors. So there's dissociation, which is like the sensation where people say it was like I was hovering over myself, watching myself, and it wasn't me. And also research found that the one thing parents of kids with disorganized attachments are found to have in common is unresolved trauma and unresolved grief from their own past. So if you have a disorganized parent, they're going to raise you in such a way that it's going to make you disorganized. You're going to experience higher amounts of attachment distress, triggered more easily, and behaviors to manage relationship pain will be understandably more extreme. People believe disorganized attachment is a combination of anxious and avoidant, but it's not. They could be both, but most people with it relate to the experience of anxious attachment, but with more intensity and less predictability. They have a fear of abandonment and rejection, where they need to keep their partner physically close, but they're also frequently dissatisfied, and they might protest and make demands. But then as soon as they pull their partner in, so far this sounds like me, but as soon as they pull the partner in, they have an urge to push them away. Like, it's like, I need you, but you're going to abandon me. So I'm going to like abandon you first. And then, but wait, I need you. So it's literally like you are playing tug of war with a person, but you're on both sides and you're just constantly yanking them back and forth.
Interesting.
It says, if you find that your current or past relationships are especially tumultuous, fights that may escalate to extreme verbal abuse or violence, impulsive breakups and getting back together, and what we might call high drama, disorganized attachment might be at play. That's a gist of it.
It seems like in the model that I am familiar with, that would be the fearful avoidant. It seems like that's like the role that it's taking. Or some of them they say fearful avoidant, other ones they just say fearful.
I mean, they're definitely fearful. But they're also anxious attached, where they're like, I want you, but then they're like, get away from me. Which imagine being a person who embodies shut up when you're talking to me. That is literally these people. Like you're just like, what? So this is them as a adult. It says, if you have disorganized oscillating attachment, which is like anxious mixed with this, you likely will relate to going back and forth between moments of intensity and moments of shutting down. What triggers you one day might not bother you the next. You might notice mood swings, even multiple throughout the day. You might have fits of rage followed by feelings of helplessness, vulnerability, and then back to rage. Hard time with healthy boundaries. It can be easy to confuse dissociation with avoidant behavior of retreating or shutting down, but dissociation is a trauma response, not an avoided one. So it might look the same because the person just is suddenly checked out, but they are literally having an out-of-body experience and not just being like, please stop talking to me.
So now from reading this book, what did you find out that your attachment style was?
I am anxious, insecure, basically like as a child, if you're anxious, you got an inconsistent message about your emotions. So sometimes your emotions were validated and other times you received like a negative response. So like being mocked, being ignored, being told that like it's not a big deal, you're fine, or like you always do this or whatever. You basically grow to believe that you are too much for someone and that you can't get your feelings heard without taking like extreme measures. And so an anxious avoidant person is typically the person who's always saying like, I'm just gonna leave you, or like, then I just don't wanna be with you, or like making threats and stuff like that, because as a child, you basically develop the mindset of, I have to get extremely big in order to get my emotions heard and validated. And the only way for an anxious avoidant person to feel that they are not too much and that the person is not going to leave them is for them to feel that they have expressed their emotion and the other person on the receiving end is like, I get it, and I am still wanting to be with you. An anxious, insecure, attached person will not let an argument stop. They will want to talk it through until it's resolved. They will not drop it. They're usually the initiator. They usually bring up the issue. They're the one to say like, we need to talk.
What I also like too is with the again, like the format that I'm familiar with, is they always refer to it as anxious preoccupied. And I think the preoccupied is like the best term for it, because it's like, that's really what it is like you are literally preoccupied with the status of your relationship to the point where like you're obsessive over it almost. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like that constant craving for validation and like constantly needing to have like that reassurance. And it's like, I just think that preoccupied is like a really great way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it too. And you're preoccupied, you know, because you're anxious, you're worried about it. So like, yeah, it's always on your mind. It's always going to be like infiltrating your conversations. And so, yeah, that's me for sure. And then which
I think I skew towards that, but
yeah, I mean,
see.
I would say so because we tend to agree. Yes, we'll see. And then an avoidant, insecure person. So other than two securely attached people, the most successful pairing is an anxious avoidant. Or I'm sorry, why do I keep mixing them together? Is an anxious attached and an avoidant attached person.
And I think too, like another important aspect of the dismissive avoidant people is that they don't view like emotional well-being, kind of like they in their minds everyone is responsible for themselves, like in a sense, like because of the atmosphere that they grew up in. It's like I always had to take care of myself and make sure I was okay. So it's not like in a selfish sense, like I'm not gonna help you. It's just they literally, to them, like they were responsible for taking care of their own emotional needs. So like, isn't that just what everyone is responsible for? Like everyone's responsible for their own emotional needs. And why would what I say or what I do affect how you feel? That's an important thing to understand about those people, is they literally the opposite. Whereas like an anxiously attached person is like, no, I'm well aware that like other people and how they treat me deeply affect me. And I need to know right now that you still care about me. It's like the total opposite, where they're just like, I'm responsible for me, you're responsible for you. So I think that when you're dealing with dismissive avoidance, that's like something that people really need to keep in mind, is like just from the get-go, these are people that are just like, everyone is responsible for themselves. And you have to learn to be patient and understanding that that is where they're coming from. Not to say that you can't work through that and crack through that, but it's like definitely just like foreign to the anxiously attached individual.
Yes. So this says, if you were anxiously attached as a child, you got enough of the emotional food to know it existed, but not enough to relax in the knowledge that it would be there when you were hurting inside and when you just needed to be seen and connect. Instead of your emotional energy being used for your own healthy development, you were busy wondering, will you be there for me now? What about now? Are you going to be there for me next time? What about the time after that? And then it says, sounds exhausting, doesn't it? Like, yes. Oh my God. Imagine being in my head. You would die. If you had to fight to get your emotions validated, you probably found yourself wondering, although maybe not consciously, what it meant about you that you couldn't rely on support, and what it meant about those you depended on, that they couldn't always show up for you when you needed them. Could anyone be trusted to be consistently there for you? All of this leads to the core fear of the anxious attached child, a fear of emotional or physical abandonment. The word abandonment might sound dramatic, but when we consider that the attachment system exists to ensure our very survival, it's not inaccurate. Anxious children are also ambivalent about their feelings. On the one hand, they don't trust that their feelings are valid or acceptable, but on the other hand, they're still driven to express them. This gets them caught in a cycle of big expressions, being responded to negatively, and then feeling badly about themselves for failing to hold back. This tension between wanting to be seen, but also believing they'll be rejected if they try, contributes to enormous anxiety. Do you remember being told as a child that your feelings made sense and were reasonable, even in times when the way you behaved in response to your feelings wasn't appropriate? If the answer is no, you're not alone.
I mean, we grew up in the 90s. I don't think anybody was saying that to their kids.
Girl, no. No,
like,
please. Are you a safe space? Are you kidding?
Like,
the safe space was, I'm going to whoop your ass and you're going to thank me for this roof over your head, that you're not going to get shot tonight.
Exactly. Do you want something to cry about? Because
you gonna get it today, served hot.
Like that's what millennials were really raised on. Yep. They don't want to admit it, but
this part really resonated with me. It's like, how did you get your needs met? If you were an anxiously attached child, you probably had to learn to make yourself as big and noticeable as possible to have your feelings responded to. You may have acted out with tantrums and behaviors that demanded attention, or you may have tested your parents' availability to ensure they'd be in the future. In a similar vein, some anxiously attached children will become people pleasers in their quest for reassurance. If you can relate, you drew your value and your sense of safety by keeping those around you happy. Both of these strategies are designed to help the anxious child feel seen, valued, and responded to positively. Anxious children often have mixed feelings towards their caregivers. They crave love.
Wait, can I just pause you for 1 second?
Yes.
Because I'm interested. I want you to finish this, but I want to know, because of what you had just said, and I can't pinpoint exactly what it was, but I would like to know what the statistic is for like male to female within these attachment styles, because I feel like the women will be anxiously attached.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's correct.
Because of what you just said.
Yep,
And
it's
the
more
men
women.
will gear more towards the dissociative because women just in general, the people pleasing,
Yep.
the like girls are just socialized to already extract their worth from making everyone around them happy.
Ding ding.
But
correct.
please continue.
Mostly avoidant people are male and anxious are female. So for an avoidant child, they usually say they had a great childhood. Some even describe it as perfect. And then throughout therapy, she talks about how it comes out that like they actually had really bad childhoods, oftentimes worse than others. And it's literally because
Well, who's like running around with a good childhood though?
of the 50% who are secure.
Like my childhood was good, but then if I sit down with tweezers and a scalpel, I mean, I could probably tell some really fucked up stories. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
But there's
I don't
people
know.
who are, but there's people who are secure, the 50% of the population that are literally like, my parents are great. I'm super close with my mom. We go shopping every Saturday. And like, that's it. Like, I know, it's unimaginable if you're the other half.
Well, no, I'm just saying, no, because I think those people still, like, even, it doesn't matter. I mean, I feel like, I'm just saying that, like, the reference to, like, a normal, like anxious people think they have a good, it's like, well, if you thought you had a good childhood and it took you sitting down with a therapist and stripping through every interaction that ever happened to you to figure out that it was bad, I'm not sure that's the answer. Because, like, isn't your overall impression of your childhood more important than, like, the factual math of it 20 years later?
No.
Yes.
No. Not according to Julie.
No.
Because.
I disagree, respectfully.
However, she says that when an avoidant child is like, my childhood was normal, or like I don't really remember anything bad happening, or like, you know, sure there was stressful times, but like it's basically like a really watered down thing compared to what most of the time she hears, where like kids are literally like being starved, like horrible shit. So like the reason that they often don't remember or feel strongly is because as a child, if you start dissociating your emotions and like pushing them down, it makes memories less potent, and especially those that are more emotionally driven. So like, let's say your mom leaves for a week and you're already like avoidant. You're probably not even going to remember that she left because that was a really emotional time. So you just distracted yourself for a week and didn't even like remember that it happened.
Yeah, but my point is, but if you are developed enough mentally to have that type of self-preservation mechanism in place, I mean, you're just basically already a well-adjusted person.
I mean, yeah, these people, I mean, we're not sociopaths, you know, like we're adjusted. It's just like, this is specific to couples and the way that you respond in a vulnerable relationship where like you have a stake in the game, where it's like, I could get hurt if you don't love me correctly. And usually that's when the fights start, which is why like people are so in love and then like 4 months in, they're like, I don't even know you anymore. What the hell? Or not 4 months, maybe like a year. Like once you actually start like being vulnerable and dropping your crap and like, you know, stop looking like your Instagram posts, then it's like, then it starts to come out and it's like, here's what I need to feel securely attached to you because now I'm looking for a relationship to go deeper. And the avoidant person's like, I don't know what deeper means. I'm going to go watch this movie until you stop doing this weakness where you like talk about your feelings. And then they go and have like ragingly high blood pressure. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying that all doesn't happen. I'm just, I guess, my thing is just like with the childhood situation. I don't know. I feel like that's anecdotal at best.
Yeah.
Because
I think you're right.
I just feel like it's different. Like, to me, if you had to, like, I'm not saying that it doesn't help in terms of like, okay, obviously if this is a person who is having serious issues connecting with people, like to the point where they're seeing a therapist and they're talking about their attachment styles and like, okay, well, like, you know, you're actively not remembering anything that happened to you. So like, I guess let's crack your head open and like go in for it. Which is cool. You know what I mean? And like, that's basically what you're going to do with people eventually. But at the same time, it's like, I just feel like, I don't know, like, I guess it just seems like if you're able to, I think it's like a very slippery slope when you start to just pick back into your past and be like, okay, where was I victimized? I'm not saying that is necessarily what she's doing, but I feel like it's a slippery slope. And it's like maybe being under the guidance of like a professional and having someone just to like talk through that with, because everybody's childhood, I just don't think a normal childhood exists. And I think that a lot of people who feel like they escaped unscathed, I'm sure if they took a look back there, they'd be like, I don't know.
It's great that we have this guide and stuff, but it's also like, I think people want to be textbook examples of stuff instead of being like, you know, I'm a little like anxious avoidant, but I wouldn't say I'm insecurely attached. You know, for the most part, I feel really secure. The only reason I don't identify with secure attachment is because like I do sometimes feel this way in moments of high stress. Instead, it's like, well, this fits me, and so now I have to go find all the references to make this like valid. And it's like, well, no, maybe you just are a little anxious of like, or a little avoidant at times. And it's actually not bad or severe enough where it has any real impact on like your future.
Yeah. Well, and too, like, I can't help but wonder, like, what is, because these are attachment styles that are formed obviously with your caregivers, like you have multiple caregivers technically. And I know for me, like if we technically want to like look back and dissect my relationship with both my parents, even though it's good, very different, especially when I was younger, technically, like when these things are being formed. You know what I mean? Just because my dad was always working. Like I remember being like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 at like a Christmas party. And I'm like, I never see my dad except for like on holidays and like sometimes at night. Cause like my dad was just working all the time. You know what I mean? Which was fine. You know what I mean? It gave me a good work ethic.
Sure. But at 6, you don't give a shit about that.
But that's like what he did. You know what I mean? Whereas like, so like technically my dad in a sense was like, not gone, but very much so just like the dad, like he just worked, you know, came home, relaxed, coached our baseball little league teams, and like, you know, like he still did a lot with us. It's just like compared to like my mom being like up my ass 24/7.
24/7. 24/7.
Do you want a salami sandwich? She'll come here right now, make us all a salami
and then
sandwiches.
if you don't want it, she's going to want to know why you don't want it. Do you have a fever? When was your last period? Are you sick? Have you been around someone sick? Are you washing your hands?
So needless to say, I'm interested to know, like, and that's just like a core memory for me that I remember for the longest time. It's just like, I remember being mad young and just being like, my dad's like,
where is that guy?
You know, I'm like little and I'm like ranking everybody in my family, like how maybe, you know, whatever. My little brain's processing something. And I'm like, yeah, well, I see my dad, like, you know, more than I see all these other people, but not as much as I see my mom. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, basically, which you and I have talked at length, not on the podcast, about like the power struggle stage. And how really that is the stage that brings, like, obviously, like, honeymoon is great. Dismissive avoidance, they love the honeymoon because there's no, you know, it's everything's fresh, it's new, there's nothing deep. So, like, they don't have to worry about deep emotions because it's new. So it's like they flirt, and kind of the same thing with the anxious attachment because everything's new. So you have that like constant attachment, constant energy. You're always being reassured in your relationship. So like everything's great. And then it's not until you get to the actual power struggle stage where you're like, oh my God, I'm so anxious. Or I need to get that, you know, away from these feelings if you're the avoidant.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. You said you're anxious. Do you want to like confirm that?
I mean, I think we should do you have like, is it like a quick quiz? Like what is
So there's like 8 or so questions for like, do you have this attachment style? And then if you answer yes to these questions, you likely do. And they have like 8 for anxious. Where's avoidant?
Okay, let's do the anxious.
Okay. Question 1. In your romantic relationship, do you fear abandonment either all the time or mostly in moments when your attachment safety feels threatened? Are you going to answer it?
See, yeah, I'm just thinking because it's difficult. It's yes, I guess we'll say yes because this has to be a relationship that I like because like okay. Anyways, yes.
Okay, it's okay. It's yes. 2. Do you crave more together time and closeness than your partner seems to?
Yes.
I know I hated saying yes to that one. I was like, oh, great. Now I'm a needy loser. 3. Are you more likely to bring up relationship concerns than your partner?
No, that's a 0 on both parts.
Whoa, they don't give a shit. 4. Do you think if your partner would just get it right in the way you define, quote, right, end quote, you wouldn't have to protest, get emotionally big, critical, and or overly demanding?
No. I mean, I don't
'cause
identify.
you're not bringing anything
I don't
up,
identify
so.
with any of those things. Like I don't think I'm like overly emotional or like I don't get extra big or demanding.
I don't think you are either. I don't think you do either. 5. Are you especially triggered when you don't feel emotionally validated or emotionally supported? I said no to this one.
What was the first half of it?
Are you especially triggered when you don't feel emotionally validated or emotionally supported?
No.
Do you feel the urge to have things resolved right then and there?
Yeah, technically, yes. I feel like I've gotten better as a person, like just patience, but gut is always going to be like, I want to talk about this shit right now. Don't tell me we're going to talk later.
Yeah.
I will punch out right now. Like I will fly there.
Yep.
What are we talking about right now? Let's go.
I'm on my way. I don't even need this job.
Yeah, no.
Do you find yourself wanting to continue arguments until you find the sense of safety you're looking for?
Yeah, I'll keep going.
And lastly, do you frequently fall into any of the following patterns during arguments? Often being the one bringing up concerns, especially pertaining to the relationship, protesting, criticizing, feeling emotionally escalated, crying or feeling rage, seething, maybe with fantasies of leaving them, wanting to make up.
We've never gotten into an argument.
Oh my God.
So if we're talking my current relationship, I
think we have to be, yeah.
So what, is that a no then?
I think it's a no. So you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just made it into anxious attachment. But also, like, you're pretty secure, I think.
That's what I figure. Like, I skew towards anxious. Yeah, that's about right. That's just my better half just bleeding into me. That's all that is.
No.
He makes everything better.
Oh my God, I'm gonna throw up. You guys need to have your first argument so you can come down to earth. Securely attached. I gotta know now. Are you actually secure?
We just gently disagree.
Gently disagree.
It just stops.
What?
Yeah. There's nothing to argue about.
Dude, there's so much out there that you could argue. You're kidding?
No, because he'll just be like, this is what I think. I'll be like, well, this is what I think.
And then you're both like, okay, bye.
And then just crickets.
Then we stare at each other and it gets real quiet.
And then a bunch of cats run into the room and we're like, oh, life is great. Let's go ride our mountain bikes.
Unbelievable. I'd be like, don't look at those cats as an excuse to not answer my question. Look at me. Look into my soul. And he'd be like, I gotta get out of here. Please stop making me do this.
That's where, like, I feel like a piece of me is avoidant. Maybe it's not secure. Maybe the other half of my quiz is they're all yeses to the
let's see.
avoidant. Because I mean, like, in most relationships, I feel like I would definitely be qualified as the dismissive avoidant individual.
Number 1, in your romantic relationship, do you fear being seen as a failure by your partner or a failure at the relationship more than you fear? Wait. More than you fear being emotionally or physically abandoned?
Yes.
Whoa, that's a big deal. Okay, that's 1. 2, does your partner seem to need more together time and closeness than you?
No.
Does too much closeness sometimes feel uncomfortable?
No.
Do you tend to avoid bringing up relationship concerns because you either don't have them or you don't want to talk about them or you fear it will trigger your partner if you bring them up?
Yes.
Okay. Do you often feel unappreciated or as if you're never getting it right for your partner?
No. Not like for them. I feel like that's like in my own head. Like I'm I'm not living up to my own standards of what I think they want me to be. But it has nothing to do with anything that they've said.
I don't know how they're asking this. Do you ever feel unappreciated or as if you're never get? Yeah. Okay. Do you hold in your relationship anger and try to make the best of things only to lose your temper later or in areas unrelated to the relationship? Yes. Do you find yourself wanting to be the first to shut down arguments?
Not shut them down. No.
Or you've never had one. On.
No, I'm just saying. I'm trying to answer this like less of like this is specific relationship and just more of like me in general.
Do you frequently fall into any of the following patterns during arguments? Defending, counter blaming, appeasing, shutting down.
What was the first choice?
Defending. Counter blaming.
I mean, I get defensive. Like, I feel like I get defensive in an argument. So
do you defend yourself, though? Like, do you do that? Are you like, I didn't because I blah, 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 blah?
Yeah, like, I'll definitely be like, well, I didn't think that was a good idea. Yeah, like, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, my nature is defensive, so yes.
I don't know, dude. I think you might be secure. You're not really hitting the nail on either of these. You just sound like a normal freak. I don't know what the hell's wrong with you.
No.
Would your parents love you?
Again, I think it's just like also a lot of the things that are, I guess maybe it's just all that secure attention I got from my mom 24/7. It can't be. She had frontal lobe damage. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but so she didn't have heart damage, Bridget, okay?
No, I'm just saying there's no way the consistency. Please. She never used to pick me up from school on Tuesday. Well, she always forgot that it was early.
She had shit to do.
Early dismissal.
Dude, I have to get Andre an hour early on Wednesdays, and I swear to God, I fight for my life every Wednesday. I'm like, oh my God, did I miss it? It's crazy.
I mean, that's asking a lot. It's like a big deal when I have to like take my garbage cans out in the morning.
Shit is just... I mean, we're barely making it. We are just, woo! Yeah, so hang on. Let me find disorganized because these people are wild. Sorry for the disorganized people who are going to hear this.
Oh, I just read something about the disorganized, and this says that disorganized attachment is both the rarest and most... I just had a lisp. Disorganized attachment is both the rarest and the most pathological attachment style. Anyone diagnosed with a dissociative disorder, borderline personality disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder is likely to also have a disorganized attachment style.
Boom. Is anyone surprised? I'm not.
No.
I'm not. No. Nope. Okay. Disorganized. So hang on. There's two different types of disorganized. One is like you lean towards avoidant. One is you lean towards anxious. But the anxious one is super common. So this is disorganized. Do you find yourself answering yes to many of the questions for anxious attachment? Okay, yes. Do you experience intense physical and or emotional abandonment fears in your romantic relationship?
No.
Yeah, me either. Do you struggle with self-regulation when you're triggered and often feel completely lost in your emotions? I mean, I occasionally feel like lost in my emotions, much more so before this book came along, and I literally felt like, oh my God, my husband does not care about me. But I think this is like this is more common because it says completely lost in your emotions. Where like it just sounds.
No, I was gonna say I agree with you. Like before I kind of like started to do this work and learned about all this stuff, I could say that, yes. But I feel like once I like started learning about this and it was pretty simple for me to connect the dots and like use it and be like, oh, okay, like this makes sense. And so yeah, like definitely I guess no.
Yeah.
Because to your point, it's not consistent.
When arguments get intense, do you either fight back hard, fall apart emotionally, or run away? I mean, no. I mean, I leave the room, but they mean literally like go away. Do you get offended or hurt more easily than others? I mean, I would say yes, because I just feel like everyone says that I'm sensitive, so I'm just going to assume yes.
Yeah, I'd say no to that.
Does anger usually feel like rage? This one was tough because, like, I felt rage towards my partner, but I don't know that my anger usually feels like rage. I mean, it's gotten there.
Like then rage. Then you're just raging out all the time.
No. I mean, I've been angry, but like
you could be angry without being like rage. Like to me, like raging is like I'm crying. Like it is wild. Like angry is just like I'm pissed.
No, I literally like huff and say like I'm going to take a bath. I'm not. Are you unsure of how you might react to a difficult situation? Sometimes you might react strongly, while other times you might not react at all, even when the triggers are similar. This to me, I was like, whoa, this is a different type of person.
No.
Like, what? The same trigger. Imagine you're like hearing you're fat and then like crying and then hearing you're fat and feeling nothing.
Yeah.
Like, what?
There's that pathological.
Yeah, Do you often have mood swings that make your life feel unstable and unpredictable? No. Can your feelings for your partner shift from positive to negative and vice versa in a short amount of time? When this is described in the book, it talks about like within the same argument. Like you'll literally be like, I can't stand you, and then immediately followed with like, I'm so desperately in love with you.
Like I was thinking at first like intrusive thoughts more so, like not about an argument, but like in my own intrusive thought mind. Like,
no,
I
not
just
that.
Feel, oh my God, I'm so in love, and then like the back of my head like some crazy shit, and I'm like, where did you even? What did that even?
No, you're like he doesn't have a second family, Bridget. God. And then lastly, do you have a hard time trusting your partner's love and or loyalty even when you have plenty of evidence to do so? Which like, no, what the hell? If you have plenty of evidence, like that's what girls are built on. Yeah. If you have receipts that he's loving you behind your back, like you're good. Yeah. You're Gucci, girl. So yeah, it's crazy. Securely attached people are so regular.
No, but I really do think that for people who this is like new, hopefully it was informative, but it definitely is something worth looking into. I think that we both have seen huge improvements in understanding in our own relationships.
Massive.
And what was the book again? Please replug the book that we have no affiliation with, but you guys should definitely check out.
You got it. It's Secure Love, and it's by Julie Menano, and it was copywritten this year, so it's brand new. It's just fresh, hot off the press. Just reading 10 pages of this book a night and being like, oh my God, that's me. This is crazy. Helped me understand Jonathan so much that like just my day-to-day emotional state is so much more calm, and so much magic can happen from there, like what you can do when you have that. So yeah, definitely worth a read. And if you're going to recommend a book to someone, make sure you read the whole thing.
Yes. And I would say too that if you like to maybe absorb things by listening or watching them on YouTube, that the Personal Development School YouTube channel has a lot of really good videos on attachment styles.
Boom.
So that is that. I think I sent you some of those. Thais
Yep,
Gibson.
You did.
So yeah, I think that she is really good at breaking it down, and obviously she has like all the credentials. She's like a psychologist or therapist or something.
She's qualified.
But yeah, I think that is great. And she also covers a lot about like the different stages of a relationship. And I think that those, again, are really helpful when you start applying those to your attachment styles too, because that's a doozy.
Yes, like literally the things that you're struggling with in your attachment styles relationship are the things that attracted you to each other in the beginning. So it's super beneficial to like know the life cycle of your relationship, because you're not like gonna stay in your first year of dating where you're like wearing different new underwear all the time. Like that's not gonna last. It's not gonna happen. So like knowing where you're at is really good, so that when you're like, oh my gosh, you've totally changed, it's like, well, no, they didn't. You just actually started investing your feelings in a real way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that closes us out yet again. It's been so real.
Thanks for joining us. So real, so attached.
So insecure.
It's beautiful. And we will see you guys next time on the Best Friend Files.